London, an international city always in a state of change. Welcome to a Channel 8 News MHK All-Day special report, London Calling from London, England. Over the next half hour, we will be looking at life in London as the entire country prepares to go through an exit from the European Union.
A large part of the UK economy is tourism. We'll introduce you to some of the sites and the importance of keeping those tourism dollars flowing.
We will also look at the health scare that is sweeping the world in the UK's reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic.
In a city as large and sprawling as London, people have to get places quickly and efficiently. I'm underground to see just how millions of people get from point A to point B in one of the most comprehensive public transportation systems in the world.
Entertainment in the West End Theatre District of London can be expensive, but there are many micro shows going on all around. The buskers perform on street corners for coins, and we'll take a look at how they are part of the fabric of this city.
All that and more coming up now on Channel 8 News Special Report, London Calling.
With the coronavirus pandemic happening across the world, the United Kingdom, and particularly the capital city of London, has been hit very hard. That has placed strain on the National Health Service, the government-sponsored healthcare provider for the British citizens. The NHS is a government-funded medical and healthcare service that is free to residents living in the UK using general taxation.
According to the National Health Service, COVID-19 is a new illness that affects your respiratory system, targeting your lungs and airways.
In early March, some Londoners felt this was much ado about nothing.
People are really scared, but I also think there's way too little that we know about it so far.
However, many Londoners took heed to the warnings, causing widespread shortages like in the United States. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson caught the virus and was hospitalized, giving a new seriousness to the illness as London and other major cities shut down all non-essential services.
Realistically, from what I understand of it, we're certainly not going to be the individuals who are going to be mostly affected. It's going to be vulnerable individuals. I think there's a lot of vulnerable individuals at the moment out there.
To avoid catching this virus, it is important to remember to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, cover your cough or sneeze, and to avoid contact with people who may have been traveling outside of the country. By mid-April, the NHS was almost overwhelmed by the COVID-19 cases as they have tried to care for a disease-ridden population. From London, Macy Burning, Channel 8 News.
The days of dull plant-based dining in the UK are long gone. Vegan fever means that the capital encourages restaurants to add their own flavorful twist to their meatless dishes.
Veganism is a compassionate way of living that seeks to avoid exploiting animals for any purpose. In dietary terms, this means they do not consume meat, fish, eggs, dairy products, or any animal byproducts. The number of vegans in the UK has quadrupled between 2014 and 2019, with around 600,000 Britons now on a plant-based diet, equivalent to more than 1% of the population, according to the charity of Vegan Society.
I think it's exploding. I think particularly this year with Veganuary, for sure, so many more shops and restaurants are getting on board with it. Even to see Burger King coming out with a vegan burger, and McDonald's and KFC. Who goes to KFC to eat vegan? But they were bringing out a vegan option. So, for sure, it's definitely accelerating in the right way.
In a like manner, the residents of the city take veganism to a new level.
Universities here provide fresh foods throughout the year. Students have the opportunity to choose between produce and healthy treats as an alternative to snacks filled with artificial flavors and colors.
Here at Regents University, they are very conscious of giving their students the meal choices that fit their lifestyle.
In all of our outlets, there is vegetarian options as standard and vegan options. We make sure that there is at least some choice. So on our grab-and-go sandwich selection, there is daily specials in there. On the hot counters here in the refectory, we have at least one hot option main meal, if not 2 or 3. There is then the full salad bar, which usually only one of them is not vegan, but the rest will all be vegan choices. There's then crisp snacks, and we have a selection of vegan ice creams.
Wholesale and retail markets are a way for present-day traders to sell specialty foods to the general public. Amongst the produce on sale are approved vegan options.
During my production period, I also acquired vegan certificate, which is a long process because they need to satisfy that all your ingredients, including the sweetener, the sugar, is vegan approved, because they want to know the process of the product you are putting in your production before it's approved.
The reasons for the switch to veganism may vary from concerns about the environment to personal well-being.
Healthier eating is, I think, a choice in terms of depending upon what your background is and how you're choosing to eat. As some students choose that healthy eating just contains chicken. Others have a more balanced and varied view. So there's a huge range in terms of your opinion on how you choose healthy. But we try and cater to options all across the board, and bits that we can go.
Me and my girlfriend will generally eat vegetarian, like not strictly vegan, but usually vegetarian. So when we're out, we're always looking for that option. And I think there's like way more options now than there used to be.
This lifestyle, though, may not be for everyone. For some, it represents a difficult change.
I have heard about it, but I wouldn't be vegan. But I do respect the people that go towards veganism, because I'm aware it can help the planet.
Home to 152 vegan restaurants citywide, London's meat-free scene has gone mainstream in recent years throughout the whole city.
If you're looking for a plant-based cuisine or a meat-free burger, be sure to check out the menus posted outside their restaurants.
At the current growth rate, it is predicted that vegans and vegetarians will make up a quarter of the population by 2025, and flexitarian just under half. In London, I'm Miriam Chamberlain for Channel 8 News.
On June 23, 2016, a referendum was held across the United Kingdom to decide the fate of the UK's future in the European Union. For the first time in history, 52% of the voters decided to leave, ensuring that Brexit would happen. Although it's been in discussion for a few years now, Brexit finally became official on January 31st, 2020. This means that the United Kingdom, containing England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, are all no longer in the European Union. The topic of Brexit has been the center of controversy since the recent conversation first began in 2016. While almost everyone has their own opinion on it, some people are just happy that the process is over. Aaron Kennedy, an English citizen who spent his entire life in London, believes the majority of the public cares less about actually leaving the European Union and more about the mental toll that United Kingdom citizens have gone through due to the long process of Brexit.
It's been going on for so many years. I think the British public have just had enough of it, to be fair. To be in a Brexit or to be out of Brexit, it's one of them things that's happened now, so we can all move on with our lives.
Like Aaron, many of England's residents are just happy that they don't have to think about Brexit anymore, especially in the midst of a pandemic. However, many other citizens hold the belief that the UK government should have taken more time to truly understand all the options and weigh all the benefits.
So my opinion before it and now is actually the same, in as much as I don't think it should have happened. The reason being is that actually no one has a clue what they're talking about. Realistically, it's really interesting. The fact that the referendum happened gave people this idea that they actually knew what they were talking about, whereas actually there's very few people who are actually qualified to talk about it.
Some Americans think that Brexit couldn't affect them in any way. However, due to trade restrictions that come with the United Kingdom leaving the European Union, there are some issues that could affect everyday life in America. The day after the Brexit vote was passed in 2016, the euro fell 2% to $1.11, and the pound dropped 8% to $1.36. Since then, both have gradually continued to drop. When the value of those currencies weaken, the value of the US dollar increases. While this might sound like a good thing, a strengthened US dollar can actually cause equity prices to fall in the United States stock market. The overall outcome and possible effects of Brexit are still yet to be seen. Public opinion is still divided, and the controversy over how the UK and the European Union will adapt is in question. It will likely be many years before anybody can say with absolute certainty that Brexit was a good or bad move for the United Kingdom. From London, England, I'm Adam Cook, Channel 8 News.
Ranking as the third best public transportation system in the world, showing only Berlin and Shanghai, the London Underground, otherwise known as the Tube, has been a trailblazer in the world of public transportation. One of the reasons that so many people choose to ride the Tube day in and day out is the convenience it offers, as well as being a cheaper option than the overground alternatives.
It's great. It's a great mode of transportation. It's cheap. Well, in the grand scheme of things.
and yeah, it gets you where you need to be in a fast way.
Every time I come to London, I always use it. It's the cheapest, easiest method of transport. Buses can be quite confusing sometimes, and I love kind of the engineering behind it. I think it's really clever. It's kind of fascinating.
Since its inception in 1863, the Tube has continually improved and added more lines as the years have gone by. Today, there are 270 stations that serve 5 million people each and every day. During peak hours, there are more than 543 trains on the railways. In most big cities around the world, slow traffic is a major issue, and London is no different. According to Metro UK, drivers spend on average 73 hours per year stuck in traffic, making it one of the most congested areas in the world.
I think upholding a car in London is quite expensive, and there's traffic and everything. I just think the Underground is just like an easy way to get from point A to point B without any hassle.
The traffic in London is an absolute mess, a diabolical mess. The London Authority, Sadiq Khan, Boris Johnson have made London, you can't drive in London anymore because they've put these bike lanes in, they've cut roads off, and it's impossible to drive in London anymore. When I first got my license to drive in London, it was beautiful. We could go to A to B, we could say to the customer, we'll be 10 minutes, but now we can't do that anymore because they've shut roads off, they put bike lanes in. London, to me, is basically a big car park.
The Tube is just like quicker and convenient. If you're in a car, you're going to get stuck in traffic because of like traffic congestion. It probably isn't good for the smog either, because obviously our air pollution isn't great. And yeah, the Tube just like is able to connect all of London. You can switch lines really easily, so you can get to anywhere in London within probably an hour.
It's easy, you can get on and off really quickly. You get like a direct line directly to where you want to go. There's a lot of stop-starts. You're probably going to be in traffic a hell of a lot more than you would be.
Because the world revolves so much around technology, the London Underground developed an app for its citizens and tourists to be able to better understand and navigate the underground transportation system.
I do have a free app on my phone, which I normally put in where I am, where I'm going to, and it tells you all of the changes. If for whatever reason one of the stops is closed or one of the lines is closed, you can quite easily, on each tube, you've got your two directions that easily point out where you're at and where it's going to stop. So that definitely makes it a lot easier for people.
Even with the current pandemic, the Underground has continued to run on a limited basis as an essential way for people to move around the city, with hopes that it will be back up and running at full speed as soon as the pandemic is resolved. Underground in London, I'm Jacob Hall, Channel 8 News.
Tourism in London brings in millions, therefore driving the nation's economy. London attracts a number of different market groups, such as day visitors, day meeting and conference visitors, and staying visitors. Andy Charlton is a Blue Badge tour leader who works all over the city and knows how much the tourism industry means to London.
It's hugely important. We have visitors from all over the world, everywhere you can think of. There isn't a country that isn't represented in London at some stage or another, and people come to visit friends, family, relatives, but then they also come to do business. And we need everybody. London's a global city. Everybody's here. You can find hundreds of different languages spoken in London. We have communities from every corner of the globe. We're a proper global city.
While millions of people from across the world travel to London each and every year, in 2018, people from the United States visited London more than any other country. They also spent the most amount of money when visiting. Tourists come to London for all sorts of different reasons. Sarah Rucker from Texas explains why her and her husband love coming to London for vacation.
The pubs, the bookshops, walking around, the parks, the palaces, it just has a good vibe, good feel to it. And of course go out to their little
countryside home and just kind of relax with them for a couple of days.
Not only does tourism bring in a lot of money to the city, but it also creates approximately 1.5 million jobs for locals living in London.
Around 13% of the people who work in London are employed by the tourism sector in one way or another, which includes souvenir shops such as this one.
Tourism is absolutely vital. It's really, really important to our economy. It filters down through everywhere. So it's not just the big business deals that are done. The City of London, as you say, the square mile where the business and finance is, we've got people coming from every corner of the globe because we are the world's financial centre. That's obvious. But then it comes down to people coming for sporting events, people coming for cultural events, for all sorts of different reasons.
Currently, the world is facing a global pandemic, and even back in early March, conferences and other events were starting to be affected by the coronavirus. Eliza Linscott from Yorkshire was in London for a dance competition when it was suddenly canceled due to the virus, but she was still able to turn her trip into a mini weekend vacation.
Well, there's plenty of things to go see, there's a lot of history, like the museums and the signs as well. It's just a lot to look at as well, it's just nice to be in a different place.
Tourism in London will be majorly affected by the coronavirus. Before the virus, London was projecting inbound visits to be 39.7 million, and they are now projecting only 12.1 million, with those numbers representing the most optimistic cases. In London, Bailey Short, Channel 8 News.
The London Busking scheme is a hit with performers and the traveling public. Passers-by can enjoy more than 100,000 hours of live acts and musical performances each year. One London resident, who goes by the name Heavy Metal Pete, has spent most of his adult life performing in London hotspots like Trafalgar Square and Covent Garden.
At a young age of 20, I was living with somebody who juggled a little bit. I got into it, and somebody else said to me, while you're practicing, you should do it on a street corner with a hat in front of you as an incentive to keep you practicing longer. And I was working building sites at the time, and just doing that thing, practicing with a hat in front of me, it wasn't long for us making more doing that than I was on a building sites.
With the help of his wife, Maria, he has been entertaining people in Covent Garden for many years. But not just anyone can come to Covent Garden, put down some rope, and start performing.
A lot of waiting around and a lot of picking up. It's always entertaining.
At Covent Garden, there's an audition process. You do have to audition for this particular pitch, and you have to have insurance for your audience members, not personal insurance. But it's a nice setup. You don't have to pay a fee to perform here, which is nice.
It's all about public liability. If it's run out, you have to renew. Otherwise, they won't let you perform.
The Underground is privately owned, the National Rail is privately owned, and the South Bank and parts of Covent Garden are privately owned as well. So a lot of the places you need to audition to get a license, and other places you just rock up and start singing.
Performers make a living not only with their talent, but with their ability to capture an audience. On a good day, performer Dan Kay estimates an audience of
at least 10,000, maybe closer to 20, because if I do a show and I've got about 200-300 people watching, and then other people got the same amount of people or more, and it goes all day long, and then they do other stuff, it must be this number at least.
It's all about bringing people together and make them laugh. That's most important. It's not about what you are doing. If you can make people smile and laugh, that's most important.
And there you have it. Covent Garden has been home to more than thousands of performers since the 1600s, and it hasn't slowed down since. For nearly 40 years, singer and songwriter Terry Sinclair has soaked up the London performing experience.
This has been my home territory, and I'm very interested in the culture here. So it's been, and I have a love relationship with Covent Garden and its history, and I am actually now believe it, I'm a trustee of Covent Garden since last year. So I have a lot of interest, a lot of history with Covent Garden.
Not only can you find delightful shows throughout the brick streets of London, many musicians also perform underground, making morning commutes a little bit happier. Buskers in the Underground have a unique audience of about 3.5 million passengers every day. Like what you see but don't have any cash? Buskers have electronic card readers to help make the tipping process easier.
I take anything ladies, it doesn't have to be money anyway. Yeah. Cash transactions, cards, yeah, people give weird stuff as well.
Although street performers can make more than a living during the tourist seasons, business has slowed down with the current coronavirus pandemic.
Well, I can't count the tourists. I mean, there's very few today because this virus thing, and this is the quietest I've ever seen it for a Saturday. It's usually very busy.
Typically, this time of year, this place should have been packed, like 6-7 rows of each, like all the way around. So it's shocking how much this is affecting everyone.
People come here, they hug each other, you know. No, it makes it a lot worse.
For Heavy Metal Pete and performers just like him, they plan to keep entertaining as long as they can.
Just trying to be as entertaining as I can, I suppose. That's all it down to. A little bit of crowd psychology involved, but just mostly being entertaining, being somebody that I'd want to watch.
Just making strangers smile, genuinely. Like, even if the money was terrible, I'd still do it.
In London's Covent Garden, I'm Katie Fink, Channel 8 News.
Classic Football Shirts is not only the UK's biggest seller of retro football shirts, but also of the world. The shop now has over 500,000 retro items in stock. Classic Football Shirts started in 2006, but they did not get their big break until 2010 when they sourced 50,000 units of kit room stock from Italian giants AC Milan.
2 years ago, we decided to look into doing a retail operation. We had a very successful website. We'd been growing exponentially, so we wanted to bring the shirts to the fans. This has been a journey in London that's been going on for about 2 years now, actually, and this is our 4th shop in London. We've been moving around, trying to find the right place, doing little pop-ups, and this is actually our first permanent store in London.
Over the years, Classic Football Shirts has garnered football fans from all over the globe who acknowledge the rich history behind each shirt.
On a daily basis, we get a lot of people come into the store and are genuinely excited to come here. I can't even tell you the amount of times people say, I've come from X country to just to come here.
With the current COVID-19 pandemic, Classic Football Shirts has been the football experience when in London.
I mean, at the moment, obviously, with the whole situation with the virus, like a lot of people come into the UK to watch football games, but at the moment, like the games have all been postponed, so this is kind of coming to this shop is almost like the pinnacle of coming to like your football journey to London.
Football shirts have proven themselves to be a timeless piece of history. Each shirt represents a specific moment in time, which brings upon unrivaled nostalgia.
Working in a shop like this, you are constantly exposed to people from all over the world who have incredible knowledge about their teams, and it's a real pleasure to meet those people because people can come in here, they're the experts. Customers that come in know all the shirts, they know exactly what happened in that shirt and who moved where and when, and you know, sometimes it is a struggle to keep up with them, and that's great because it keeps us on our toes. But they're the guys who are making us who we are because they're the ones who are supporting us in the journey.
One of the reasons Classic Football Shirts has found success is because the shop reminds many football fans of more simpler times.
Like when I come in there now, it's just like reminiscing of just growing up, like when you're carefree, just go and kick a ball with all your friends, everyone would be in different tops. Like just watching like old football on TV compared to now. Now it's like quite commercial. Back then it was a lot, it sounds a bit cliche, but it kind of resonated with everyone.
Collecting football shirts goes beyond pure nostalgia. To those who adore and obsess over them, like shirt collector Simon Mulvey, shirts provide a connection to not only their favorite club, but also a whole community.
You go all over the world and just football fans, whether it's Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, everyone, you find someone that loves football. So then when you have those shirts, you kind of have a connection to that league, to that country. You've never been, like you have an AC Milan jersey, you might have never been to Italy. Like you just feel you're a part of that culture and you're a part of that community because it's so broad where you'd fit in anywhere once you have a jersey on you because someone's going to recognize you. Even if you don't speak the same language, if you're wearing a jersey, you're recognized, someone's going to come across you and someone's going to appreciate you, I guess.
Although Simon collects all types of jerseys, he knows nothing compares to the feeling of wearing the shirt from one's favorite club.
I put on a random jersey if I think it looks nice and kind of like you feel cool with it on. But then when it comes to I support Liverpool, so when I put on a Liverpool shirt, you get that feeling of pride when you put it on. Like you're not wearing it because it's a nice shirt, you're wearing it because it's Liverpool. So there's kind of two different feelings, depends on what jersey you're wearing, I guess. So.
Whether you're an avid collector like Simon, or just looking for a nostalgic football experience, Classic Football Shirts is the place to be. In London, I'm Luis Villarreal, Channel 8 News.